Greetings. Good to talk to you. So this is a second vlog in a series of vlogs, and they flow out of a season of strife in my life. So it's caused me to wrestle quite a bit of questions in my life, and as I've wrestled, I've found that there's not only application to this one problem, but also to many things in the broader culture as well as my life very personally. So I welcome you on this journey. So last year, I really come face to face with manipulation. And it's not something that I've thought a lot about during my life, but it's just become very clear through a bunch of strife, through looking critically at the church, looking critically at myself. I start to see this all around me. And, one of the most frightening things about this is that when you manipulate, it's so easy to be completely unaware that you are manipulating. All right, so what I found is there's these two key methods, manipulation and persuasion. So when we manipulate, we use power to force people to do what we want them to do, often against their will. When we use persuasion, we use our reasoning to get another to do what we want. Now, the power in manipulation can take on many forms. Ones that I'm familiar with and have observed are emotional, physical, and legal. And humans are intensely emotional creatures with deep emotional desires. This craving makes manipulation through emotion very effective, especially for people who are related. The one we're most familiar with is the silent treatment. So in this case, we rob the other person of the thing they most want, relationship, in order to force them to do what we want to do. And there are innumerable other ways to threaten people with relationship loss. In fact, I remember one time, a very unhealthy time in my life, and so I was dating a girl and I wanted to break up, but instead of doing the right thing and talking directly to her about it, instead, what I started doing is I just started treating her badly. Just started doing mean things and that sort of thing. And eventually, she wanted to break up with me. And so I avoided that fear of talking to her about this difficult thing. In the process, I hurt her very deeply. And I was fine, but she was hurt. Unfortunately, that happens quite a bit in manipulation because in manipulation, the needs of the manipulator are above any sort of hurt or the disadvantage that the manipulator may may feel. So anyways, the other manipulation method is physical. So physical could be any sort of threat, could be some sort of act. Certainly, you can imagine all kinds of very terrible physical manipulations. Probably the one that we're most familiar with, that we've all gone through, is manipulation through yelling. That's a very physical method, and it just involves yelling and yelling and yelling, maybe for long periods of time. And most people that you know, myself certainly included, at some level, we don't love conflict. And so when yelling continues, eventually many people just give in to stop the yelling. Lastly is legal. And so in legal manipulation, that might be just hiring a lawyer to make claims. The claims may be false, they may be true, putting out a lot of claims, put out papers, letters, that sort of thing, in order to manipulate people. Because, most people, they don't want to waste the time, the resources, the efforts of fighting any sort of legal battle. And so legal can also be used to manipulate. Now, in all this, as I've said, I'm not perfect by any means. I'm a hot mess, and so I'm susceptible to these same desires and problems as well. But hopefully I am learning to do a better job. So we'll see. So anyways, manipulation is not the best way to go. But there's something else. So persuasion. So whereas manipulation is very hierarchical, persuasion is very egalitarian. In manipulation, you have to believe that the manipulator is wiser than the other person. So that greater wisdom puts them above the other person, gives them the right to tell the other person what to do. In persuasion, we rank the other person equal with us. We assume that within the topic of discussion, they are just as wise as we are. Therefore, we feel obligated to interact in a mutually beneficial, mutually respectful manner. So then, what does persuasion look like? Well, there's three key important aspects that I'd like to bring out. One is listening, the other is slowing, and the last is humility. So when we listen, really listen, actively to the person we want to persuade, we immediately show respect to them. Most people in discussion don't listen to the other person. They're just taking up time to think up the next thing they'll say. In active listening, we use all of our energy to listen. We work hard at listening. And when we practice slowing, we allow the conversation to progress slowly, which helps keep tempers down. In slowing, we also pause after listening and think carefully about our response. In difficult discussions, it can be very healthy, in fact, to have many times of silence. Finally, humility allows us to be open to the idea that the other person may persuade us instead. Now, this is only possible when we seek the truth over power. Now, as I spent many years in the evangelical church, I want to make an application to that culture as well. When a Christian believes they've received some truth from Jesus, they're at a very risky position with respect to manipulation. Our deep belief in the truth can make us tend toward manipulation rather than persuasion. What this can look like can be elevating making laws way over doing things to change people's minds. And both are important, but right now in our culture, the balance is way off. It can also look like electing immoral, misogynistic people to political office because of the power that they may get us to manipulate those that disagree with us. Think Trump and his cronies. This may get some short-term wins, but it is a long-term recipe for failure. The church must work to persuade the world, employing listening, slowing, and humility. Now, while every problem can't be solved by persuasion, it should always be our primary strategy. In the rare case where manipulation is warranted, we should make that decision carefully, with wise counselors and careful discernment. You see, our natural desire for power influences us to favor manipulation over persuasion. But we can employ our thinking brain to choose persuasion over the baser manipulation. And some of us gravitate more powerfully than others to manipulation. If that is us, it would be wise to do a great deal of introspection, maybe with or without a counselor, to try to determine why. Realize that choosing persuasion benefits our society, our relationships, and even our own mental health. Did I persuade you? So what are the personal commitments that I'm making as a result of what I've experienced? One is be very intentionally aware of when I'm using persuasion and manipulation. 2, utilize persuasion whenever possible. And 3, incorporate the key qualities of listening, slowing, and humility into all my discussions. Thanks very much.